They cut my bonus. And then they blamed me. I still remember walking into the office that morning. The air felt heavier than usual, like something was off. My boss looked at me with that same calm, confident smirk he always wore, the one that hides everything. But that day, it wasn't just confidence. It was control. 5 years. 5 years of grinding, late nights, endless deadlines. I sacrificed weekends, skipped trips, ignored family dinners, all to make that company stronger. And I thought loyalty counted for something. I thought hard work mattered. I was wrong. The email hit me at 9:03 a.m. Subject line, bonus adjustment. I opened it, thinking it was a mistake, but the words burned my eyes. Due to underperformance, your bonus has been adjusted. Any losses are your responsibility. I froze. My bonus, gone, and the blame, placed squarely on me. I should have seen it coming. There were signs, subtle, almost invisible. Misplaced files, late reports, small mistakes that seemed to multiply under his scrutiny. Nothing big, just enough to set me up. I didn't confront him. Not then. I just walked out. Silent. Angry. But beneath that anger, a new thought was forming. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, going over every meeting, every decision, every task I'd handled. Nothing justified what had happened. Except him. And then it clicked. Slowly, pieces falling into place. Small transactions that didn't make sense. Late-night calls. Patterns that felt too deliberate to be coincidence. My gut told me something bigger was at play. Something he was hiding. I told no one. Didn't vent. Didn't complain. My silence became my weapon. People think revenge is loud. It isn't. Revenge is calculated. Revenge is watching, waiting, collecting pieces until the moment hits. The next week, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Numbers that didn't add up, expenses that didn't match projects, coworkers who suddenly avoided eye contact. I felt the truth behind it all. Dangerous, illegal, and hiding in plain sight. I almost backed off. I almost walked away and let it slide. Most people would. Most people don't have the stomach for this kind of fight. But I couldn't. I refused to be a pawn. That fire inside me, the one that refused to be broken, flared back. I started gathering evidence. Tiny things at first, screenshots, notes, documents, everything I could collect without tipping him off. Every slip he made, every secret he thought was safe, became a brick in the wall I was building around the truth. And then whispers from coworkers began to make sense. Odd transfers, risky investments, and gambling debts he'd tried to hide. I wasn't ready for the full picture yet, but I knew enough to realize one thing. My boss had been lying, scheming, hiding something massive. I remember staring at him during a video call that week, smiling, confident, oblivious to the storm brewing just under the surface. I felt anger, yes, but also clarity. I wasn't broken, not yet. That's when I decided. I wasn't just going to fight for my bonus. I wasn't just going to clear my name. I was going to expose him. I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't know what I'd uncover. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let him win. Not this time. I started watching him. Not like a coworker. Not like someone curious about office politics. I watched him like a hawk. Every movement, every decision, every word. At first, it felt wrong, paranoid. But then the patterns became impossible to ignore. He was sloppy, not careless, overconfident, thought he was untouchable, and overconfidence is the easiest weakness to exploit. The first clue came in a financial report, a tiny transfer that didn't match any project. My stomach dropped. I copied it, traced it, followed it, then another, and another. It started to make sense. Large sums disappearing, meetings no one knew about, odd wagers on things no one talked about. I felt sick, Illegal gambling, risky, underground, and he was right in the middle of it. My boss, the man who had been pretending to guide me. I almost confronted him. Almost. But I stopped. Too early, too exposed. He's good at lies, good at hiding guilt. One wrong move, and I'd be the one taking the fall. So I stayed quiet, smiled, watched, listened, recorded, not in a paranoid way, in a calculated, patient way. Every call, every transaction, every suspicious move, I tracked it. Co-workers noticed the change in me. Calm, focused, silent. They didn't know I was building a case that could ruin him. Then came the first real test. He tried to pin another mistake on me. A report miscalculation, nothing serious, easily fixed. But he wanted me to take the fall, humiliate myself in front of the team. I stared him down. Quiet, calm. Inside, my blood was boiling, but I let him speak, let him assign blame, let him feel in control. Then I showed him the numbers, every figure, every discrepancy. My silence had weight. His face faltered. He tried to hide it, but I saw it. Surprise, fear. Patience wasn't just about gathering evidence. It was about proving him wrong in ways he couldn't anticipate, undermining him quietly, watching him unravel without knowing why. Then the whispers made sense. Co-workers hinted at suspicious deals, unexplained transactions. At first, I dismissed them as gossip, but they all fit into the puzzle I was assembling. One night, I found it. The smoking gun. An encrypted email chain. Bets, transfers, illegal activity. Absolute proof. My hands shook as I read it. Betrayal wasn't just personal, it was criminal. And then the fear set in. His fear. If anyone found this, his empire would collapse, and I held it all. I became meticulous, obsessive. Backups, hidden copies, encrypted files, every detail protected. One slip and the plan dies. Through it all, I kept my mask on. Polite, loyal, attentive. He bragged about investments, laughed at losses, confident. Every reckless move he made, every secret he thought was safe, became ammunition. I began to feel power. Not physical power, not money or influence. The power of truth. The kind that makes even the strongest men tremble. Then I realized how far he'd go to protect himself. Threats, bribes, manipulation. The full depth of his deception was worse than I imagined, and I felt a controlled fury I hadn't known I was capable of. Late one night, sitting in an empty office, I whispered to myself, they thought I'd stay broken. They were wrong. This wasn't just about a bonus anymore. This was about reclaiming my life, my reputation, my dignity. And deep down, I knew the moment of confrontation was coming. I just had to be ready. It all came down to that Friday morning. I had been patient, calculated, careful, watching him dig his own hole. But that day, the truth hit harder than I imagined. He called me into his office, the same office where I had spent years giving my blood, my nights, my weekends. The same office where I'd trusted him, respected him, believed in him, and now it was the stage for betrayal. Sit, he said, calm, like nothing was wrong, but his eyes, cold, sharp, dangerous. He started in on the losses, how I was responsible, how my decisions had endangered the company. His words were precise, rehearsed, a knife wrapped in silk. I stayed silent, nodded, smiled. Inside, I wanted to explode, but I didn't. I had learned something crucial. Patience was my ally. Then he leaned back, smug, confident. I don't understand why you're upset. It's just business. Just business. As if ruining someone who trusted you is normal. As if destroying loyalty is acceptable. And then it hit me. The transfers, the gambling, the secret accounts. He wasn't just blaming me for losses. He was covering something bigger, something illegal, something that could bury him if anyone discovered it. I should have been furious. I should have yelled, stormed, threatened. But instead, I smiled, Slow, calm, controlled. He noticed. "What are you smiling at?" I let the silence linger. Thick, heavy, enough to make him uneasy. "You really thought I didn't notice?" I said quietly. His confusion was brief, then fear. Quick, sharp, dangerous. I laid it out. Every suspicious transaction, every shady meeting, every illegal wager, the emails, the screenshots, the recordings, all of it. At first, he laughed, mocking, but it faltered. I could see the cracks forming. "You don't know what you're doing," he said, voice shaking now. "Oh, I know," I said, calm. "I know everything." For the first time, I saw him for what he really was. Not the mentor, not the boss. A liar, a manipulator, a man who thrived on the downfall of others. The tension in the room was suffocating. Every second stretched, thick and sharp. Then he tried to charm, to manipulate again. But it was too late. I wasn't a pawn anymore. I wasn't blind. I wasn't afraid. I watched him panic. Watched him stumble through excuses. Watched him realize the empire he built on lies and risk was fragile. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Freedom. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I didn't even gloat. I just let him see the truth. Let him feel it. Every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal laid bare. That day, I learned something important. Betrayal doesn't just hurt. It teaches. It exposes. It gives you a choice. Stay crushed or rise. I chose to rise. I left the office that day with calm I hadn't felt in months. Every step, every breath, mine again. The fear, the humiliation, the rage, all left behind in that office. But the fight wasn't over. Justice doesn't walk itself in. I had to make sure the world knew the truth, and that required strategy, precision, patience. I thought about the co-workers who whispered, the juniors who had trusted him blindly, the ones afraid to speak. I realized my fight wasn't just personal anymore. It was bigger than me, and that's when the plan hit me. The one that would expose him completely without risking myself. I would let the evidence speak. I would let his own actions destroy him. No rage, no spectacle, just truth. Simple, clear, irrefutable. That night I sat down and organized everything. Every screenshot, every email, every irregularity, every hidden thread of corruption he thought safe. Everything ready. And in the quiet, I told myself, they thought I'd stay broken. They were wrong, because this wasn't just about a bonus. This was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and making him see betrayal only fuels those who refuse to break. I knew one thing with certainty. The moment of reckoning was coming. The next few days were a blur of calm precision. On the surface, I acted normal. Polite, professional, composed. But inside, every move was deliberate. Every word, every silence, a part of the plan. He thought he had won, that I was defeated, that his accusations had buried me. But what he didn't realize was that the game had already changed. I wasn't his loyal employee anymore. I was his reckoning. I started small, quiet, careful. I visited old contacts, people who had left the company after disagreements. They weren't hard to find. Most of them had similar stories. Sudden dismissals, lost bonuses, unexplained audits. Different names, same fingerprints. His. Piece by piece, a pattern emerged. Fraud, manipulation, coercion. Every thread I pulled led to another lie. And I documented everything. Emails, account statements, internal memos, even voice notes. Late at night, my apartment became my war room. Folders, USB drives, labeled documents spread across my desk. The glow of my monitor the only light in the room. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the screen. Tired eyes, clenched jaw, and I'd almost pity the man I used to be. The one who trusted too easily. Who believed loyalty was enough. But that version of me was gone. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth, about balance, about watching arrogance collapse under the weight of its own lies. Then came the critical step, the audit department. They were feared by everyone in the company, even by him. They operated quietly, outside normal management control. If anyone could expose what he'd done, it was them. But walking into their office without proof could destroy me. So I needed something undeniable. One night, I found it, buried deep in a shared folder. A transaction trail connecting the company S funds to a private offshore account. His name wasn't on it directly, of course. He wasn't that careless. But the digital fingerprints, unmistakable. He'd been rerouting client money into shell accounts through fake vendor payments. Clean, invisible, until now. I remember leaning back, staring at the screen, feeling my heart pound. That was it. The final nail. The next morning, I uploaded a secure, encrypted copy of the files to multiple drives. One to my personal cloud, one to a friend's system overseas, and one stored offline. I wasn't taking chances. Then I walked into the audit office, calm, confident, prepared. The lead auditor, an older man named Kareem, looked up from his papers. "You again? I thought you were cleared." "I was," I said quietly, "but you missed something, and you need to see this." He studied my face for a moment. Then he gestured to the chair. "Sit." I slid the drive across the table. He plugged it in, scrolling through the folders. With each file he opened, his expression changed. Disbelief, then focus, then silence. After a long pause, he looked at me. "Do you understand what you've brought me?" "Yes," I said, "and I understand what it means." He nodded slowly. "Leave this with me." That was it. No dramatic confrontation, no shouting. Just quiet certainty. I walked out of that office knowing the storm had begun. By the end of the week, whispers started spreading through the company. Internal meetings, sudden document requests, restricted access to certain accounts. He noticed. He started watching me again. Those sharp, suspicious eyes that once commanded respect now filled with fear. He cornered me one afternoon in the hallway. "You think you're smart, don't you?" I didn't flinch. "No," I said evenly. "Just patient." His jaw tightened. "You don't know what you've done." "Oh, I do," I replied. "You taught me." That broke him. For the first time, I saw panic in his face. Real, desperate panic. He tried to fight back, tried to delete records, threaten staff, blame others. But it was too late. The audit was already in motion. The files were duplicated, shared, verified. His empire was crumbling, one lie at a time, and I didn't need to lift another finger. Each day, his voice got quieter, his steps slower. Until one morning, his office was empty. His desk cleared. His nameplate gone. Official statement. Resigned due to personal reasons. Unofficial truth. Exposed. Finished. Erased. That evening, I stood outside the building, the same one I used to enter with hope and loyalty, and watch the sunset reflect off the glass walls. It felt peaceful. Not victorious. Not vengeful. Just quiet peace. Because in the end, I didn't destroy him. His own choices did. The day after he disappeared, the office felt different. Quieter. Lighter. Like the air had been scrubbed clean. But for me, it didn't feel like victory. People whispered in the hallways, half-truths, rumors, guesses. Some said he ran off before they could arrest him. Others believed he had powerful friends protecting him. For the first time in months, I could finally breathe. I packed my desk in silence. No celebration, no goodbye party. Just me, a cardboard box, and the faint hum of the air conditioner. As I slid the last file into the box, I noticed the small brass nameplate ID kept on my desk since my first day. Rafiq Hassan, Operations Lead. It felt heavy in my hand, not because of the metal, but because of what it represented. Years of loyalty, late nights, missed family dinners, all for a man who used me as a shield for his crimes. I slipped it into the box anyway, not as a memory of failure, but as proof that I survived it. Outside, the city buzzed like it always did, cars honking, people shouting, life moving forward without pause. But inside me, something had changed. I wasn't the same man who once smiled at every compliment or worked overtime for approval. That version of me died the day he blamed me for his greed. Now I was sharper, quieter, wiser. A few weeks later, I got a call from the audit department. The investigation had concluded. He was officially blacklisted, facing charges for embezzlement and fraud. They thanked me for bringing vital information to light, but I didn't do it for thanks. I did it for closure. When I hung up, I just sat there for a long while, staring at my hands, the same hands that once built his projects, fixed his messes, earned him praise. Now they'd ended his career. I should have felt proud, maybe even powerful, but all I felt was calm. Because the truth is, revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's silent, clean, like justice settling quietly after a storm. One evening, months later, I walked past our old office building again. A new company's name hung over the doors now. Fresh paint, new logo, new dreams. Funny how quickly the world replaces people, even the powerful ones. I stood there for a minute, watching the lights inside flicker on, and whispered to myself, I trusted the wrong person, but I became the right one. That was my real victory. I'd learned that loyalty means nothing to someone who sees people as tools, and silence, the thing he mistook for weakness, had become my greatest weapon. I started freelancing after that, consulting for smaller firms, honest ones. No office politics, no power games, just work that mattered. Sometimes I still get messages from my old colleagues, the few who knew what really happened. They call me the quiet storm. I like that, because that's what I became. Not loud, not violent, but unstoppable when it mattered. A few months later, I heard through a contact that he'd tried to start over abroad, opened a small company under someone else's name. Didn't last long. Word travels fast in our industry. Once people know your truth, you can't hide from it. He was living small now, renting an apartment, avoiding social media, keeping his head down. I didn't smile when I heard that. I didn't need to, because that was never my goal. All I ever wanted was for him to face the mirror, to see the man behind the mask. And from what I heard, he finally did. Sometimes at night, I think about how close I came to giving up, how one lie almost ruined everything I'd built. And then I remember the moment I decided to fight back. Not with anger, but with truth. That choice, it changed everything. Now, whenever someone asks me about revenge, I tell them this. Revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about freeing yourself from them. Because when you stop letting their betrayal define your story, you win. I still keep that old brass nameplate on my shelf. Not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what I became. It sits there quietly, under a small note I wrote to myself on the day I walked out of that office. They thought I'd stay broken. They were wrong. And that's the truth. That's my ending. Not with rage, not with pride, but with peace. Because sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's winning in silence.